Okay. Wonderful. Okay, well, my name is Jessica Stevenson. I am your host today. For those of you who don't know me, I think several of you, I work with the community resources team. So my colleagues, Veronica, David, Dora. I am from Colombia, born in Brazil, English family as well, background, and I currently live in Prague. So I am a cultural confusion. But I am passionate about Africa and the Middle East, and I've traveled some of it in my former work and life. So I really enjoy any space that I can connect and learn from you and learn more about the work that you're doing. And my role within community resources is learning and evaluation. And I'm currently working with a group of community members and part of our team as well, David and Dora, in this program that's called sConnect. And it's about creating spaces like this one for peer learning, for sharing our knowledge between colleagues, for a very relaxed and open space to learn together. Sorry. For an open and relaxed space to learn together. And I'm going to say a little bit more about this in the introduction. But first, I would like you all to use the chat just to quickly tell us who is here in this proposal writing learning session, learning clinic, with your name, your role and organization, if you're an organization, and the emoji that you most use, and if you can share that in the chat. And later on during the session, you will have an opportunity to speak more about your role and your work. So can everybody just quickly take a few minutes to present themselves? This includes the team members. Please share the emoji that you most use.
Hi, everyone. My name is Candy. I'm a long-term editor in Botswana. And I just put on the chat my mostly used emoji. Yeah.
Thanks, Candy. Anybody else? You can share it on the chat so we can do the introductions quickly. Nada. Wonderful. Later when we interact, you can tell us why that's your favorite emoji.
Okay, I can tell you now if you want.
Yeah, tell us now, please. Get us going whilst people right there.
Yeah, I'm an animal person. I love animals, but when I like to pretend I'm innocent, I like this emoji. It really represents the situation that I'm still young, and please don't misunderstand me. I'm still learning.
That's wonderful. I'm going to adopt that. I like the way you say pretend to be innocent, but I love that.
Yeah.
Veronica likes the prayer one. Obi is happy, the smiley face.
Yeah, and the prayer one is always confusing. It's for me, it represents thank you, like thanks.
Namaste.
Namaste.
I want to say something about the pray emoji, because I always thought it's a pray emoji, but I recently have known that it's a high five emoji, not a pray one.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
And now I can't unsee it. I just see a high five emoji. My prayers are lost now.
No, and now all of us cannot unsee it.
Yeah. I'm sorry for that. We really need a different one now.
That's great. Okay, so as we start the introduction to the session, people can add their emojis and their introduction. Sandra uses mine, the sweating one.
Yeah, in fact, I use it a lot.
Brilliant. Oh, Musa with the smiley face with the eyes.
It's okay.
Okay, so thanks for those brief introductions. For those who haven't presented themselves with their most used emoji, please do so in the chat. I'm going to start introducing then our peer learning clinic as part of Let's Connect. We're going to focus on grant proposal writing. A lot of you have said you have been rapid funds grantees or thinking about rapid funds. Some of you even are thinking about the general support fund. So we're going to talk about grant writing, proposal writing in general, but we're going to focus a lot more on those of you who are thinking about the rapid funds. As I mentioned, this is part of Let's Connect. For those of you who don't know about Let's Connect, you want to find out more and you want to register, I've linked in there our meta page. Maybe Dora can also link it in the chat, and the registration form for Let's Connect. It's an open invitation for anybody who is part of an organized group. Doesn't matter if they're formally organized or not, but they're doing their work in a collaborative manner with others in their community. And they are thinking about working with Wikimedia funds in the future, or they're currently working with Wikimedia funds. And it's a space where we're doing this. We're creating different formats. It can be this clinic, or it can be one-on-one coffees, sharing resources so that we can build our capacities collectively. But most importantly, we're creating human connections, we're having fun, we're building community, and we're also learning from mistakes, from mishaps, from confusions that we have, from worries that we have. And it's a very safe space where we can really talk about these things and learn from them. And we value that no matter how new you are, no matter how little chicken you may feel sometimes with some topics. Like me, I am very new to the Wikimedia movement. We all have something to share from our lives, from our knowledge, from our spirit, from our happiness. So we value that everybody here, we're learning from everybody. We may be listening to some people who are coming to share some of their experiences, but we're also sharing our experiences and they're learning from us. So what are the learning objectives for this session? The ideas that we can share and practice some key aspects of proposal writing so that your proposals are very clear and very coherent. And most of all, that they have a theory of change. And I'll explain what that means, and you will see it in the examples that our colleagues will share. What does it mean to have a theory of change in our proposals? And what we're going to also identify through a practical exercise is how can we collaborate with others if we're working in the same context? Maybe we can think of collaboration in our work through the proposal fund, or also proposing work together and accessing a grant as a single project. So we're going to have a space to reflect a little bit about that. And then at the end, we will see how you may need some more support or follow-up so that when you come to write your proposals, you have all the information and support that you need. So it doesn't end in this session. This is a beginning. And up until the point that you're writing your proposals and thinking about them, Veronica and the team will be here to support you and your peers. So this is the structure of the session. We're going to have two wonderful case study examples of how to develop your theory of change from the region, two great grantee partners who have developed some amazing work. Then we're going to go into groups, breakout rooms, and we're going to do an exercise to apply this to your work. I'll explain more details as we come to that point in the session, but that will be the second half of our 1.5 hour session. And then we are going to just do a brief closure. So now I would like to hand it over to my wonderful colleague, Isaac. And if you like, Isaac, I will be able to share your presentation on my screen, or you can do so directly. Just let me know.
Let's start with Seslos.
Seslos, okay. Seslos, would you like me to share, or do you want to share your screen?
You may go ahead and share, that's fine.
Okay, fine. Just give me 1 second then to. Seslos, if you like, you can start introducing yourself whilst I organize my screen. Thank you.
Sure. I was hoping to, when I saw Isaac's name first, I thought I would be okay. Need a second to present, but it's fine. I'm prepared either way. My name is Seslos Owunaya. I am from the Igbo Wikimedia and user group. I also work communications at Wiki in Africa. And over the years, since I joined the movement, I have had some interesting experience. That's how I would sum it all up in terms of grant application. Even when I get, let's say, David's email of, oh, no, we can't fund this now. It was always interesting as David always makes our time to actually explain the reason behind most of the no's that he sends out. And that sort of formed a huge sum of knowledge for me at the long run. And I had to unlearn, of course, and relearn to know how best to submit proposals. And the brief context I would be sharing with us is the She Said campaign, which we had last year. It's a Wiki Loves Women Gender Gap initiative on Wikiquote precisely. It's about amplifying the voices of women via quotable quotes or some statements that such women may have made either in the course of their career or maybe somewhere. And then first, it aimed, the project aimed to bridge a gender gap on Wiki, especially using Wikiquote. And then it was important because there was need to amplify women's voices on Wikipedia and beyond. And then it aimed to use Wikiquote as a tool for bridging gender gap and generally amplifying women's voice. Next. So we we at Igbo Wikimedia, it was actually our first interaction with Wikiquote, especially because, I mean, we used to hear Wikiquote, but it was more or less a gray area until Tochi was chosen as part of the Wiki Loves Women Focus Group. And Wiki Loves Women Focus Group had to launch that She Said campaign for last year. So that was when we found out that we needed to, of course, bring in a local African language, because before then, it was basically, I mean, 2020 when it was launched, it was basically Italian, English, and then the French that were most pronounced amongst other, I would say, international languages. There actually was nothing about, at least a Nigerian language or a Nigerian wiki per se. So when we realized that, we decided that, oh, we actually should experiment this. And that was when Florence made it clear to us that it has to start from incubation. We said, yes, that was actually a motivation for us to say, okay, let's try this from the scratch. And it worked, I would say, looking at the end results. So first, Wikiquote needs to be presented in as many local language wiki as possible, including Igbo. So for me and Tochi, of course, we thought Igbo language was a great start. And this year we're hoping to inculcate other language communities in Nigeria that already exist on Wiki. And then She Said campaign first launched in 2020 across 7 major languages, which resulted in overall 867 new and improved articles. Majority of them, of course, they were created newly. I mean, majority of the articles, but we recall that Italian Wikiput took the lead with 405 articles created or improved, with that of Ukraine 187 and French 106. So we felt like, why not Igbo Wikicode? So imagine our joy when we learned, in fact, it was a mixed feeling, if I must confess. Oh, this thing actually needs to take off from incubation. But we had Florence, who helped to guide us amongst some other community members that we consulted, who, of course, educated us one or two things to learn about Wikicode. Next, Jessica. So first, we had to activate the Igbo Wikicode incubator, since because it was not in existence before then. Now I'm going to give us deeper insight on the strategies we actually took to achieve the level of success we did. So first was the activation of the Igbo Wikicode incubator. Second, we knew if we want people to get involved, of course, people will require to be trained. There's need to train as many people as possible. And through what most of us are already familiar with, which is edited terms and thereabouts. And then majorly, I thought of, oh, this might be a good idea to perhaps rope in some new volunteers, which is what I learned over time. Sometimes when you're embarking on a project, it might be best, it might be a good idea to rope in new volunteers. This is because sometimes the old ones, I mean, if I do 100 editathons, it could tend to get boring over time. But the new ones are always excited to come in contact with the wiki space to learn that, oh, so I can actually be part of this very awesome free encyclopedia. So with that, I had to reach out to a number of persons on my network here in Abuja, since myself and Tochi were based here. And luckily for us, we found a PEA initiative. It's an NGO that is into women empowerment. So somehow we told them about the project and we were, oh, can you people sensitize your contacts, especially the women or the girls, about this project so that they could participate and help us put quotes that women have made on Wikicode. So, and when we realized that we had the training in check and we had planned the sessions, we of course found out that we needed a rapid grant to do that, to execute the project itself. And that was when we realized that Tochi, who was already a grantee for our Igbo Wikimedia user group APG, couldn't, of course, stand as the grantee for this. So in respect to that, I had to step in and I stood in as a grantee, and that worked out for us. So each time that perhaps you feel stuck, please, you might as well reach out to community members to collaborate with. It could make things better for you and easier. So we planned remote follow-up sessions with participants also. And we thought about gifts, certificates, souvenir, and what have you for the participants. So why did we choose the strategies, and why did we think these strategies would be effective? First, partnering with an NGO that was into women empowerment, it was a way to actually ignite hope in a good number of women, if I would say. And it was on the course of trying to do, findings on this NGO that I found out that most of the women they are in contact with and most of the women they are working with, actually women that come from abusive environments, abusive backgrounds and all that. So these people have been pushed by circumstances to think less of themselves. So imagine them entering quotes on Wikiquotes, and these quotes were made by their fellow women who walk on 2 feet, who have one head. that changed a lot of things for these women. For once, we actually got feedback like, wow, so there are actually Black women who are making waves, and people probably have not heard. And some of them, they randomly maybe hear one quote or the other, but before then, they actually didn't know that, oh, probably this quote was made by, let's say, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie or Okonjo-Iweala and what have you. So that was some sort of relief, learning that most of them were personally impacted by that partnership, just because we happened to find a mutual ground to collaborate. And then most of them, they in the past had probably heard about Wikipedia, but it was a mystery to them until that point, just like it was to most of us until we all came to make our first edit. So they were very excited to be contributing to the biggest free encyclopedia known to mankind. So we of course went ahead to make the training session as educative as possible. Personally, I like to dissuade people from visual editing. Why? Because there's no fun in that. It's boring, and it actually doesn't widen, your ability to learn more things. So I encourage source editing a lot. I mean, that way one could learn basic coding skills, at least while doing what they're doing. So it was an educative session for those of them who were able to participate. Oh, thank you, Jessica. We can arrange that, of course. And then the gifts and certificates, we actually crowned it all. People were very delighted to know that there was a reward for just participating to make entries that inspired them on Wikiquote. So this was how we worked around the strategies, and somehow our assumptions paid off, because when you see our end result. Next, Jessica. So talking about the 1 minute. Talking about the strategies and the outcomes and the long-term impact. First, we needed to get women involved. I don't know how much those of us that know about Wiki Loves Women know about the focus group. It's strictly for women. If you get invited as a male, it's a huge privilege. So somehow we wanted to keep the legacy of the focus group to basically train women, though of course some male from our community participated, but the greater number of participants were women. And then we need to train women on how to make quotes on or make entries on Wikiquote, and then partner with organizations with common goals to execute wiki projects. This was our goal, and personally, this is my goal. I am basically spending these recent times looking for people who won't mind what wiki projects actually has to offer, or wiki projects have to offer. And I've also implemented that in Wiki Love Africa this year, and it's yielding good results, I would say. And then we look at outcome. By virtue of training women to contribute to Wikipedia, we have more women who would actually have what it takes to contribute to Wikipedia, thereby solving at the long run the recommendations, or one of the recommendations that were made during the 2030 movement strategy discussion, which is about investing in skills and leadership development for everybody, most especially women. And then other outcomes, increased number of women who would learn to bridge the content gap on Wikispace. We can talk about with gender gap from today to tomorrow, but if we don't have enough people, especially women, who are actually knowledgeable on how to do this. I mean, I for one, I'm proud to tell people that our user group, Igbo Wikimedia, was started by women, and it's been run it's been run up to this point a great deal by women. It's a thing of pride for us, and most of our members are women. And if you go on Igbo Wikipedia, you would see most content there actually about women. So for us, it's a thing of pride. We pride ourselves in that, in getting the female folks involved in what we do, and of course, bringing bridging the gender gap content on Wikipedia. And then like-minded organizations would learn more about wiki projects. This is very key because as popular as we think Wikipedia is, a lot of people don't actually know what happens at Wikipedia. A lot of people don't know. So how do we get a lot of people to know and be involved? If you hijack, sorry to use the word hijack, if you're able to hijack an organization, they in turn could, reflect about what we do and pass the word around. If we have organizations who are up to date and knowledgeable about what wiki projects, are out there to make impact towards free and open knowledge, trust me, a lot of them would make donations towards this, even if they can't, bring in the manpower. They would want to be associated with this. They want to, pledge their allegiance to what Wikipedia has to offer. So the other impact long term is having like-minded organizations who could turn to donors eventually. I actually think that at the long run, because as an NGO, PEA initiative, they have their own contacts or donors who finance the outreaches that they do and all that. And imagine them mentioning that the women they work with are actually part of Suicide Campaign, which is a wiki project. And maybe they actually need funds to play a wider role in this campaign in the future years. This could mean that we get to, of course, commit resources with them. They bring theirs, we bring ours, and all would actually work to better make impact. And lastly, I would like to mention that the United Nations SDG number 5, the gender equity goal, is focused towards achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. And this is what Wiki Loves Women and most of Wiki Loves Women initiative actually about. Next, Jessica. Okay, learning question.
2 minutes left, but
Okay.
this point is really important. So yeah, thanks for sharing.
No problem. No problem. So there were some key questions, of course, you asked before you know how to work out other details. These questions will help you to put your goals and strategies in view. Okay, so for us, the first was what strategies are helpful to encourage participation. From past campaigns like WPWP, we know that prizes and gifts, no matter how small, people, the last one we had in our user group was diary, but we marked our Igbo Wikimedia user group and all on the diaries, and people's reactions were amazing. No matter how small, it feels good to know that there is something that reminds you of your commitment, your participation in all this that we do in the wiki space. And then the other question we asked was, who could be keen to participate? So when we asked about who could be keen, we know, yes, perhaps the female folks would want to champion this more. But then for us, we didn't have the luxury of maybe having direct access to the desired participant, which was the reason for which we started looking for organizations that could give us that level of access, allies that we could partner with on getting the keen participants. And all I did in terms of how I went about that was leveraging on what I had, which was the network of people who probably work in the nonprofit within Nigeria and Abuja. And then the other question was what could promote diversified content on Wiki? For us at the Igbo Wikimedia level, we know about Wikipedia, we know about Wikimedia Commons, and before then, you probably could find a newbie amongst us who perhaps didn't know about Wikiquote, but that changed. For us, we had to make sure that they had diversified knowledge about the various contents that are available on Wiki. In fact, I hope that with time we even delve into more like Wiki Specie and the rest of them to much more notify them about the diversified contents that are available on Wiki. And then the 2020 She Said campaign on Wikiquote, it didn't feature Igbo language at all. So we actually had to change that from the 2021 campaign. And we're always looking at new initiatives to create awareness within our community. And Wikiquote was definitely new to our Igbo Wikimedians. And by the time we asked around, of course, we were sure that we needed to actually introduce much more content beyond the regular Wikipedia and Wikimedia Commons to our community. And by the time we were done, we had created 460 articles on Igbo Wikiquote Incubator, and we had edited 595 articles on Igbo Wikiquote. Next, Jessica. Hope I'm not taking Isaac's time.
It's okay.
Okay.
I think maybe it would just conclude quickly with the budget, but that was really marvelous. I think we learned so much from that. Really,
the pleasure is always mine. So let me just round off. We had to look at the key things that we needed beyond the human resources, and that's a list of our budget. You have to calculate the price for the venue and what have you. And we had about $1,710 as our budget, but I'm sure we didn't even spend all that because we have some balance left. Next, Jessica. And then the only thing else I would like to say is collaborate, both within and off Wiki community. This is key. This is key. As I'm talking to you, there are organizations outside Wiki who are looking to collaborate on projects, but they don't have the awesome ideas we that are privileged to be in the movement have. So imagine you coming up with these ideas, the way they jump at it, it's amazing. So collaborate. That's all. It makes your life easier and your project smooth.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Teslas. And I'm going to invite Isaac to present his case, and then we'll open the space, a joint space for questions and discussion. Isaac, do you want me to share?
Great. Go ahead, Jessica. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Okay, I'm sharing here. And there's also a translated version, which I am sharing here. Just 1 second. Okay, we're with you, Isaac.
Okay, thank you very much. First off, I apologize for coming very late. I misunderstood the time because of the time zone and all of that. So my sincere apologies to everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome everyone once again to this section. This is something that is very important, especially for people from underrepresented communities. I spend a considerable amount of time reviewing proposals, and I know a lot of improvement is needed for many of the proposals I've seen. So many thanks to the Wikimedia Foundation for initiating these very important sections. So I would like to highlight the fact that nobody is born, as a good proposal writing. It's a skill that you can learn over time, and practice makes perfect. So having reviewed the current questions we have, I think these two questions have actually been introduced, and it's a very important question because it helps us to understand the kind of changes you're trying to make, and the approaches or strategies you're adopting to make those changes. And that's where your theory of change comes in. So basically, your theory of change should, basically describe a particular change that is important and, include information on why you think that change is impactful. You may want to include your intrinsic motivations, perhaps like something that actually motivates you to make those changes. You can, include that on your proposal to let us, to give us a better idea of why you think it's important to support that change. So what should your theory of change articulate? Your theory of change should basically articulate the outcome. That is, what is the change you're trying to bring about? And sorry, I want to pretend it, but okay. So it should actually show the type of change you're trying to bring about, and the entry point. The entry point has to do with what do you need to do to make the change happen. And interventions. Intervention has to do with how will you make that change? What do you need? What are the resources that is needed for you to make those changes? Then when you are writing a proposal, you make a lot of assumptions. For example, you assume that your project is going to be successful if you do X, Y, Z. And sometimes it just, your project just go based on your assumptions, but sometimes it just doesn't go. But the most important thing is that you need to understand that you are going to make so much assumptions because your proposals actually, the outcome of your proposals actually depends on the kind of assumptions you are actually making. So your proposal should articulate why you think the strategy you are adopting or the approaches you are adopting will really be very impactful and will work just for your project. So again, it depends on how you frame this in your proposal. Like I said earlier, your theory of change should be very clear. For anyone reading your proposal, they should be, very clear on what kind of changes you want to make. It shouldn't be ambiguous. So that way, you may also want to include any reflections on how you arrive at this. Perhaps you conducted a survey and you feel that the result of the survey show a huge gap that needed to be fixed. So all of that has to reflect on your proposal. So when that is there, anyone, even if a program officer just read that particular section, they understand why you are making those changes. So you may also want to include any tips, such as difficulties you might have had in defining this and how you overcame all of that. So what are your proposed strategy? In 2020, we identified a huge content gap. We realized that millions of people across the world, millions of images are contributed to Wikimedia Commons annually as part of either content campaigns or as a result of the other contributions. But only a very few of these contributions, of these images are used on Wikipedia articles. But our theory of changes at the time resulted in the following: a design of an international campaign in 2022, because we understand that those are a huge content gap, and that will require a very big context or campaigns to actually fill that space, because it's not something we can actually do locally, because we're talking about millions of content here. So we had to do something that will involve the global communities, and encourage them to make that change. So, and after the campaign in 2020, we decided to evaluate the campaign to better understand whether the strategies we adopted in 2020 actually work well, and if there's there'll be opportunity for us to actually improve or change our strategies. And the evaluation report actually showed a very significant result in terms of what should be done and what should be adjusted. So this year we're adopting a new framework for the campaign in 2022. So why did you choose these strategies? Why do you think they will be effective? What are you assuming? So these are questions you need to ask yourself when you're writing your proposal. First of all, you need to review your assumptions and document them. So as you are actually thinking, oh, if I do this, I will get this result. Don't just keep that on your brain. Write them down because they form parts of the outcome of your work. So check if the strategy you are adopting have also worked for similar projects. For example, if I discovered or I believe that content relating to mortuaries are very, they're not too much, there's a huge gap in that area. I may decide to say, okay, how can I make sure we increase content about mortuaries? I can decide to say, okay, let's adopt methods that has been used in other campaigns. For example, I can use the method adopted by the Wikiloves Monument or Wikiloves Africa to actually drive people to contribute, mortuary-related content. So those are already established strategies that you can adopt. So you may not necessarily need a new strategy. So look at it if your project actually, or if it's actually similar to an existing project, so you can adopt a similar strategy. So check if you have the right team to make your strategy work. Sometimes people have, brilliant strategies, brilliant ideas, but they don't have the required skills and the necessary or the skillful team that will be needed to implement those changes or implement those strategies. So you need to actually make sure that you're working with people who understand your goals and who have the capacity to actually support your changes. So that way you can effectively implement those changes. Then you need to review your strengths and of course that of your team. You need to ask yourself if you have the relevant experience to do certain things. And if you don't have, you need to identify an individual within our movement who have that competency and willing to support in the implementation of your strategy. Then also check if you have the resources needed. Sometimes resources is not just about money. It's not just about the grant. Sometimes what you just need is someone to help you design a tools. And a lot of volunteers within our movement who are willing to help design tools to actually solve some key problems. So you may not necessarily need grant funding to do all of that. But if you think you needed grant funding, maybe, for example, you want to give prizes for, some campaigns, the Rapid Grant is always there for you. So we're using the Wikipedia pages warning photos as a case study. The challenges we identified in 2020 was that images collected as part of content drive, such as Wikiloves Africa, Wikiloves Monument, Wikiloves Earth, and the rest, are not being used on Wikipedia articles. Those are the challenges we first of all identified. And little effort had been made to use those content on Wikipedia articles. Then we also realized that there are huge gap between the Wikimedia Commons and Wikipedia. A lot of people don't even know that Wikimedia Commons exists. In fact, the WPW campaign actually showed that huge gap. You will see an editor of more than 10 years, editing experience, don't even know how to properly add captions to images on Wikipedia articles. So it shows that there's a disconnection between Wikimedia Commons and Wikipedia. So we identified these challenges and we propose, these solutions. We realized that changes like that can be made if we actually run an international campaign, encouraging people from different parts of the world to add to add images to Wikipedia articles. Initially, we thought of doing that locally here in Nigeria, but we realized that it will not really make a significant changes. So we decided to make that global. Then we also trained participants on how to use images from Wikimedia Commons on Wikipedia articles. We believe this is very important because it will have an enduring impact because the knowledge will be transferred from users to users, and that will become a long-term impact on our community and the content we're actually creating. So our goals are primarily to promote the use of freely licensed media files from common Wikipedia articles, and also to increase contributions to Wikipedia project and build and engage communities. One of the things that actually motivated us was that during the pandemic, a lot of people were already worried about the impact of the pandemic, and there are fewer contributions to Wikipedia articles. So we wanted something very simple that we engage people during that time. So it formed part of our core goals at the time in 2020. So we want to increase new contributors as well, because adding images to Wikipedia is something very simple, and we believe that people will find that very interesting. So also we want to strengthen local Wikimedia communities. We realize that a lot of new communities are springing up, especially in Africa. So we want to find a strategic way to actually engage them. Next. So like I said, your strategy and your assumptions actually determines the outcome of your project. So we know that if we run an international campaign, we assume that thousands of images will be used on Wikipedia articles. That may not be the case, but it actually worked as per our assumptions at the time. So we know that if we evaluate the campaign, we will identify the best strategy for implementing the campaign, or we will identify how we improve that campaign. So we also know that if we collect and share best practices with local organizing team, so that we actually strengthen and help them to effectively implement that campaign. So those are our outcomes, when we do all of this. Then we also know that there are huge influx of content or contributions to the Wikipedias. So we needed to find a way to support the local communities so as to reduce the burden of cleanup on the volunteers communities. So we know that if we set up a maintenance team or a maintenance committee, it will help to minimize the burden on cleanup. So we also have other things that we do, like appointing a regional or language ambassador to help us facilitate this locally. In the long run, we realize that the content gaps are gradually closing because for the 2 years that we've run this campaign, images have been added to over 300,000 Wikipedia articles in more than 190 languages Wikipedia. So that's a huge amount of traffic, which means a huge amount of knowledge is being shared. So it also helps us to strengthen, the green communities, from Africa and most part of the world. So it's something that has a very huge, impact. And to save the time, our readers basically have access to rich content because it shows images and other things that help us illustrate our articles better. Let's Jessica. So like I said, our assumptions actually forms the basis of our outcomes sometimes. So all of these were our assumptions when we're designing the campaigns. And we're glad that the results the result from the campaign aligns neatly with our assumptions. So that's why I said it's very important to actually, pen down your assumptions when you are working on a project, because it helps you to shape your direction, in the end. So what are your learning questions? This usually happens when you are evaluating your campaign or your project, depending on what you're doing. So no matter how small your project is, evaluation is a key factor because it helps you to improve on that project when you're doing it next time. And it helps other people to learn what worked well and what didn't work well for you so that they can improve on their project. So for our campaign, these are learning questions that are relevant to us. We wanted to know if the campaign actually made the expectation for achieving these goals. So, and we use survey to actually get that information. And we're also interested in learning about how many people participated in the campaign. So we use the hashtag to do that. So we also want to know what worked well so that we can adjust. And one thing that just didn't work well last year is that contributions to Wikipedia pages wanting photos involves a lot of experience because they are editing live articles. So we should minimize or significantly reduce, contributions by new editors. So those are the new changes we're making this year. So what are local organizers' priority goals? We understand that people have different priorities, goals for participating in those contents. So we collected those feedback using the survey and also direct conversations with campaign leaders and the expressment of the community. Next. So how do your investment reflect your strategy? I used to tell people that they should, when you are planning a project, consider that not all project requires direct funding. Sometimes you just need the right people, the right ideas to implement your campaign. You don't, immediately you think of an idea, the funding should be the least thing you should be considering. You should look at other factors that might help your campaign. Consider that volunteers are the greatest investment your project requires to be successful. When you build your project around volunteers, it grows, faster, and you have a diverse set of people with different backgrounds that can help you grow your project. Then the right investment usually yields the most successful result. Of course, the funding are there. Sometimes all you need is just, a rapid gun and not a general support fund. So you need to identify the type of funding you need to access some of these funds. Sorry, Jessica, I'm taking too much time. So anything else? Well, nothing basically, but people may want to read our evaluation report and make inputs and further suggestions to improve our campaign. Oh, that's all. Thank you.
That's fantastic. We have very few minutes just to, if anybody wants to ask any questions or make any comments for our two wonderful presenters, you can raise your hand or you can ask in the chat. Yes, Musa, go ahead.
Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me? It's like you're not Are you guys with me?
Yes,
we can
Musa.
hear you, Musa.
Yes.
Speak on.
Yes, Musa.
My first question goes to Ceslos. First of all, I would like to really comment the idea of the She Say campaign. It's a very, very, very good initiative, and I would like to ask if there is any space like for collaboration, because I think it's a very good initiative that's supposed to involve everybody. So I would like to ask if there's some collaborations, as in ways of collaboration, because we also want to bring the Hausa community in the campaign, because it's a very good campaign. It's a campaign that will expose more women into the movement. So it's a very interesting campaign that we would like to be part of. So I'm asking if there is any plans for collaboration and other stuff. And my second question goes to the Isaac, for the WWP campaign. What I would like to ask is, during those campaigns, during the WWW campaign, there's a problem of overused picture in the article. Sometimes you see most of the new editors, the inexperienced editors, are overusing pictures in a particular article in order for them, maybe, I don't know, if maybe to gain to gain prizes, or maybe to maybe participate, have this feeling of participation. I don't know. So I don't know, is there any plan or anything in mind to tackle those problems? Because you see sometimes a new user will come and even spoil an article with over pictures. You see an article without much write up, but plenty pictures, just with the WPWP campaign. So I don't know if maybe they have plans on maybe reducing that, or if an article have overused pictures, there's this plan to reduce the pictures, or get it to an average pictures. This is the two questions I have. Thank you.
I don't know if Ceslos would like to go first.
Yeah, sure. Musa, thank you so much. In fact, I was already ahead of you in getting our local communities involved. This year, the Wiki Loves Women, She Said campaign is coming up by the last quarter of this year. And of course, you can count on me to loop you in so that the Hausa community, and of course, Isaac, you should also expect an invite from us to the Yoruba community. We want the local language wiki in Nigeria to be as part of it as possible.
Okay, Ceslo, thank you very much. We'll be glad to be part of that and see how we can collaborate on that. So Musa, this is one of the reasons why we do evaluate the campaigns annually, to better understand what didn't work well. Our evaluation reports in 2021 shows clearly that most of the disruptions were from new editors, and we're making that change this year. And what we have decided to do is to limit participation to users who have created an account for at least 1 year and been editing Wikipedia for 1 year, pending when we will devise the right strategies to bring in new editors. But again, it's very quick for people to blame new editors for all of this. We've seen the experienced editors make same mistakes, and that's why I said this is because there's a clear disconnection between Wikipedia Commons and Wikipedia. And thank God this campaign is running, so it will provide a very big opportunity to train people on how to actually use content on Wikipedia articles. There are a lot of issues. Part of them is just basically because people don't even read those rules. Some of people don't read those rules. So I honestly think they are new editors because they don't even know how to navigate or find their ways around the wikis. So that's why we want to limit participation to express editors only for this year and see how we can improve on it and find a way to incorporate or bring in new editors, just to minimize disruption.
Okay, wonderful. I want to invite us to go on to the next